Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I want to tell you about a deck, which I did not see coming. Which is almost like a new way, and I don't say this lightly. Kind of like a new way to play the Pokemon trading card game. I'm not saying it's the best deck ever. I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to take a little bit of time and play around with this kind of concept a little bit more. But I absolutely am telling you that I think there is a huge amount of potential here. And this is one that I've absolutely got my eye on. And what we're doing here is we're actually building a deck around Budew. Which on the one hand is great, because remember the attack says that during your opponent's next turn they can't play item cards from their hand. Yay! And on the other hand, it does 10 damage. So in what possible world are we building a deck around a Pokemon that does 10 damage? Like, I know that stopping our opponent playing item cards, or goods as they're called in Japan, is a goods thing. But also, like, you're doing 10 damage a turn. Sooner or later, your opponent's going to draw something. They're going to get out of the predicament in which you've put them, and then they're just going to start rolling from there. Okay, we should probably have a chat about this. And let's be clear, it is a deck that initially is built around Budew. We don't have any other early game attackers. So how else are we doing damage? Well, we start off with Budew. 0 energy, 10 damage, plus your opponent can't play item cards next turn. You slow the game down, you grind the game down to a halt. To what end? Dusklops and Dusknoir. Now, Dusklops and Dusknoir aren't going to win you the game. What they do is you KO them, giving up a prize, that bit's important, and then Dusklops lets you drop 5 damage counters, and Dusknoir lets you drop 13 damage counters. So, what you do here is you're using this to take out a bunch of your opponent's Pokemon. But this combines with Budew in a very nice way, because the point here is, by turning off your opponent's item cards, you are making their deck a lot less consistent. You are turning off cards like Rare Candy. So your opponent is trying to get evolved and trying to get set up, but firstly their deck is less consistent. Secondly, they can't use Rare Candy, and thirdly, because they can't use Rare Candy, they have to evolve up in the traditional way, going up into the Stage 1 and then the Stage 2, and as I told you recently, the best decks in Japan right now are Stage 2 decks. And because your opponent is so slow, they can't get evolved up into their evolutions, or at least into their Stage 2s, and that means that Dusklops is taking out some basics. Dusknoir is taking out things that aren't Stage 2s. And actually, we're playing a full 4-4-4 line here. No mucking about. And the goal here is Dusknoir. That's what you really want to do here. We want to get Dusknoir rolling. And we want to give up 3 or 4 prizes. Yes, that many. By using Dusknoir to take out a bunch of Pokemon. And 13 damage counters is good. But in a situation where your opponent cannot Rare Candy, and their deck is not working like it should because they haven't had access to item cards all game, oh, then it becomes so much better. So we use Budew, we slow the game down, we use Dusknoir to take hopefully 2 or 3 KOs, maybe 4, while giving up 3 prizes, maybe 4, probably 3, and then we get rolling. How do we finish out the game? Well, there's a few things we do. We're playing 4 Countercatcher. We are not mucking about in this deck. This is a deck where we are going behind on prizes. The entire point of the deck is to go behind on prizes by using Dusknoir to take out our opponent. Now, there is a situation here where you end up swapping 3 Dusknoir for 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, and oh no, we're now tied on prizes. But reality is they're probably going to KO your Budew. And the trade's not always going to work perfectly. You're probably going to end up, hopefully, down 1 prize. That's really the goal here. But also bear in mind that what you can do, let's say you're 2-hit KOing a Pokemon EX with Dusknoir. Use 1 Dusknoir, you're now a prize behind. Play Countercatcher, then use the second Dusknoir, and you've traded 2 prizes for 2. You're tied on prizes, but you had that moment in between where you were able to use Countercatcher before evening up the prizes. You gave up 2, they gave up 2, but you gave up 1, used Countercatcher, and then you gave up 1 but took 2. Job's a good 'un. We play 4 of it because we need it. And then we've got INO. INO is very important here. The whole point of this deck, like I keep saying, is giving up prizes. And INO doesn't ask you to be behind on prizes. It just makes both players shuffle a hand into their deck and draw cards equal to the number of their remaining prizes. Well, here, you put your opponent down to 2 or 3 prizes remaining, then use INO to wreck them. Although it's worth noting there is a copy of Roxanne in here as well. If you've given up 3 prizes, you can put your opponent down to a 2-card hand, another pretty useful one. And also you get 6 cards off of a Roxanne rather than fewer, which again can be very good. And then you bring in Bloodmoon Ursaluna. That is the goal here. You are bringing in Bloodmoon Ursaluna so that you can finish up the game. Our energy line in this deck is 2 double turbo energy. That's it. That is literally all the energy we're playing. Only 2 double turbo energy. If you've not, now remember that your Bloodmoon Ursaluna attacks for 5 energy, but it's minus 1 for every prize card that your opponent has taken. So you need to give up 3 prizes to make this into a 2 energy attack to really make it viable. Yes, you could put 2 double turbo energy on. Realistically, that's not working. And yeah, fine, you're only doing 220 when there's a double turbo on here, but remember the whole point here is you're using Dusknoir. You do not have to use Dusknoir to take prizes. You can, and again, if your opponent's struggling to set up and you can use this to take out all their evolving Pokemon, obviously you're going to want to. But if your opponent's got bigger Pokemon, use Dusknoir to soften them up, finish them off with Bloodmoon Ursaluna, and oh yeah, because you gave up a prize during your turn but didn't take them until the end, Counter Catcher will work perfectly in the meantime. And that's a general theory of this deck. Use Budew to grind the game down to a halt. While you do that, you set up your Dusknoir, and then you start taking prizes with Dusknoir, combine it with an INO to put them down to a low hand size, Counter Catcher to take the best Pokemon off the board, and again, because you're using Dusknoir, you will be able to take the best Pokemon off the board. They are not going to be out of range. And then you just sweep up the game with Bloodmoon Ursaluna. Bloodmoon Ursaluna does 220 with a double turbo. Dusknoir drops 13 damage counters. That's 350. The maximum natural HP we've seen on any Pokemon so far is 340. So when I say Bloodmoon Ursaluna will sweep and KO anything, I mean it will sweep and KO anything. This is a weird kind of deck, but it kind of works. The whole point of this game is to go behind on prizes using Dusknoir while softening up your opponent's board, and then disrupt their hand and sweep with Bloodmoon Ursaluna. And if you just get 2 or 3 turns of Budew at the beginning, that's really all you need. By the time you get to like turn 4 at least, you should be rolling here. You should have your Dusknoir evolved up and your Bloodmoon Ursaluna ready to go. I genuinely love this. This is really fun. Your other Pokemon in the deck are purely to support this strategy. They are not attackers, although technically some of them you can attack with, but don't. We've got Latias, just gives free retreat to basic Pokemon, and you're playing an all-basic deck, other than Dusknoir, but again, Dusknoir, you shouldn't really be an issue. You should be switching between Budew and Bloodmoon Ursaluna here. And remember, you can use Dusknoir's ability from the active spot. You don't have to be on the bench, so you're never going to need to switch that out. Sure, if things stop retreating, that's a big issue for this deck, but outside of that, you'll be fine. Latias works nicely. And then we've got a lot of our old friends. We've got ourselves a Luminion coming in here so that you can play it and then go and find yourself a supporter card. Again, also very useful for those turns where you need to hit the INO to try and hurt your opponent. And we got ourselves a Pheasantipity coming in here because when you had a Pokemon code last turn, you can draw an extra 3 cards. You really need... This deck is going to get to a point where it's the end game. And you need to be rolling. Something like Pheasantipity is just going to give you that little extra push of cards, which is going to get you over the hump there to make sure you've got what you need. If you don't get the combo going, the hand disruption and the Dusknoir and everything else at the right time, you will lose with this deck. This is a deck that basically says you're going to have 1 or 2 monster turns where you completely wreck your opponent's board, and completely wreck their hand, and then they've got nothing while you sweep to victory. But if you miss that big swing in the game, you will lose. And then we got Squawkabilly because, you know, setting up fast. Simple as. Squawkabilly, Pheasantipty, Luminium, it's all consistency. In terms of other cards that we need to have a little bit of a chat about here, it is worth noting that we are playing Reset Stamp as our ace spec of choice, which shouldn't really surprise anyone here. Again, remember what I've told you about this deck at this point, right? We are trying to take a bunch of prizes / set up the board with Dusknoir and then disrupt our opponent's hand and sweep. So Reset Stamp, you know, they KO Budew, you Reset Stamp, ha! That works nicely too. Also, they might KO an early Budew, so you Reset Stamp them and then just sit there using Budew while they've got a tiny hand. That will also buy you a couple of turns if you need it. And we got stuff on here like Thornton, for instance. Lets you swap your basic Pokemon around. Actually really important here, you are swapping between basic Pokemon. So having Thornton to swap from like a Budew into a Bloodmoon Ursaluna, for instance, can work very nicely. Get one in your discard pile, and then you can essentially swap into it whenever you need. It's actually, in a deck like this, it's really very, very good. We have Professor Turo, because it lets you pick up one of your Pokemon. Specifically, it lets you put one of your Pokemon in play into your hand, and it just works as another switching kind of card. For those turns where you actually can't retreat, or something along those lines, then this will come in. This will give you another switching option. Or if you've got a 2-prize Pokemon that's about to be KO'd, or a Budew that's looking particularly vulnerable and your opponent's too close to winning, you can just take a potential prize off of the board to hurt your opponent. Oh, and Jamming Tower. I like Jamming Tower here. We've got a bunch of tools which give extra HP, or allow you to retreat more easily, or whatever. And Jamming Tower here just turns off Pokemon tools. You're not using Pokemon tools, your opponent is. Well, at least they might be. So just make sure that all of those tools that might give your opponent extra HP or whatever, they're all turned off, they're gone, that's brilliant. Here's the list as a whole. And you can see here that the deck, it's very much a singular kind of deck in what it's trying to do. Stall with Budew, set up the board with Dusknoir, sweep with Bloodmoon Ursaluna. You got your Latias, your Luminion, your Pheasantipty, your Squawkabilly. They're all your support Pokemon. They're just helping you get where you want to go. Your energy line of 2 double turbo energy tells you that this is really just I'm going to draw one of these when my Bloodmoon Ursaluna's rolling, and that's all I'm going to do here. That is my entire plan. It doesn't really have a plan B. But when it works, oh, this looks fun. It's a kind of deck you don't see. It's a very different kind of way of playing the game, and I'm excited to see what people might do with this in the future. Are you going to be playing this in the future? Let me know in the comment section, would you? Good us! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel, of course, like the lovely Chelsea Rose, who's been one of our biggest patrons for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.